Greetings everyone from southwestern Colorado, where it's quite warm today. In fact, the rivers are up because the snow is now melting pretty quickly. It was 93 in Montrose today, which I know that doesn't always seem like a lot, but we're at a pretty high altitude. It's currently 82 degrees, just outside the shack. It got so warm that even my wife asked for the air conditioner to be turned on. And it's got to be pretty warm for that to happen. So, in fact, I'm looking at putting an air conditioner here just in the shack to see if I can't get this room. It's on the southwest of the house, so it gets pretty warm most of the time. So, welcome to everybody. This is... I'm Dave Kassler, and I'm amateur radio call sign KE0OG, and welcome to all of you for the Thursday evening Q&A session. I have the questions that we didn't get to last Saturday, and got actually quite a few of those because we got quite a few questions, and we'll see if we can't go through those. I had a very interesting evening last night. I was... asked to speak to a club in New York, and they said, you have anywhere between 75 and 90 minutes. I go, good grief, that's a long talk. And they said they wanted me to talk about noise, all different facets of noise, where it comes from, how to deal with it, and how to carry on amateur radio communications in spite of it. So I spent all day Tuesday, and by all day I mean all day, well into the evening, putting charts together. And so now I have this huge stack of charts. I guess I better make a video, or two or three, with this stack of charts about noise. Mostly noise on HF, but some about the kind of noise that you find at VHF, UHF, and microwave. Some stuff I had to dig deep into memory to pull out and do a little research on a couple things, but it turned out okay. They didn't send anybody out here to knock on my door or anything, so I guess it went okay. So, okay, let's see. I don't know why YouTube sometimes holds questions, but they do. Bonnie, let's see. We had a Zoom call today. Oh, good. I'm glad that you did, Ishmael. I met a friend of mine who has some things to help with. That's good. Get you going there in Dominica. Dominica is not the Dominican Republic. That's up north, not far from Puerto Rico. But Dominica, if you go down the Caribbean chain, it's about halfway between Puerto Rico and Venezuela. And I don't really know much about it except that it's really tiny, and that's where Ishmael lives. And so we're trying to get him, he's 16 years old, we're trying to get him on the air properly. All right. Noise can be an exhaustive subject. Well, it was an exhausting subject, I'll tell you that. Okay, let's turn to some questions here. And of course, if you have a question and put it in the chat, you may. And Super Chat is open. Looks like we've got about 80 people. For the last couple weeks, the YouTube page here has been broken. It's supposed to tell me how many concurrent viewers and likes and all of that sort of thing. So hopefully this is coming through okay, and we'll go ahead. All right. This first one is from November 8 Victor Zulu, Carl, who says, if you have not reviewed the RigPi, I would like to see one. There are a few videos out there about this unit, but none are very well done. I always appreciate the quality of your work, and I'm sure your video would give me a better sense of the capabilities of this unit. Well, I do have two or three RigPis. Let's see if I've got one here. No, I don't know. I'll have to look it up and learn more about it. I know that this right here is a little hotspot that's made out of a Raspberry Pi. And I don't know if this is what you would consider a RigPi or not. If somebody would like to just explain exactly what a RigPi is, it's obviously something to do with ham radio, unless you're referring to the MFJ. The MFJ is the 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got it right here. And this might be what you're referring to as the RigPi. I think it is, in fact. Let's see. RigPi Station Server. Okay, this has got a Raspberry Pi in it, which is a small computer. And it is possible through the many connections that are on this thing to connect your radio to this, and then this wirelessly or wired to the internet, whatever your connection is, and then you can control your radio from over the internet. And it's a little device. MFJ was very hot on it at the 2019 Dayton Hamvention. I think that's where it was introduced. I have one that MFJ sent to me. I also met with the guy whose name I will remember halfway through the meeting here, who invented it for MFJ. I met him at the Reno Ham Fest, and I have reviewed it. So if you go, I've got a new page on my website, so I'll just go there so you can see it. If you go to decastler.com and just go to decastler.com, and you see here where it says previous Ask Dave videos, it's this thing right over here, and it will bring you to a list of the previous Ask Dave videos. Okay, now this is not up to date yet. We just got this kind of fixed up. A lot of the links got dropped out. And so you can find all of the things here. And if you search, we'll try searching for RigPi. And, okay. Previous Ask Dave videos. Oh dear, this is so far down. Doesn't help you find it very well. Let's do a Control F. That'll look for it on the page. RigPi. Okay, it's Ask Dave episode 228, and it will tell you. And 227. Also look at the RigPi. So yes, I have done a review of that radio, and you can check that out. My impression of it was that it's interesting, but it doesn't actually allow you to look at the spectrum display, which is what I'd love to see. But it does allow you to control your radio, or anyone else that you give the password to control your radio. Now, it does require that you have a fixed IP address, because if your IP address changes, you need to know what the new IP address is so that you can log into it from outside your home. Most people do not have fixed IP addresses. They get an IP address issued to them by their internet service provider, and then they keep swapping them out because they don't have enough to give everybody one. So they give them to the people who are active. So tomorrow you could have an entirely different IP address. As it happens, I have a fixed IP address that was given to me by my ISP as a reward for a favor. So let's see. Yeah, the New York Club is going to be put the video up on their website. It says, I took an online remote exam for my ham license this week. How long does it take for it to show up in the FCC database? Well, it was as low as a week, but the coronavirus is affecting their ability to respond. So it could be a couple weeks, maybe even more. Let's see, and sounds like, yeah, let's see. If you have RF in the shack, what would you do first to get rid of it? I would go through my grounding very carefully. Make sure that you're properly grounded. That's Ask Dave number 8, which is on that list in there. Just scroll all the way to the bottom and to number 8, and it'll have the link there. That'll talk about grounding. And I highly recommend the part where all your antennas go to lightning arresters that are right at your ground rod before they come into the house. Now, in addition to that, you may have to move cables around. You want to find out, like I ended up having to separate my computer equipment from my ham radio equipment. And just the 3 feet of separation did marvelous things. And another thing is if you're bringing any antenna in or you have open wire line or something like that, get the balun out of the house and up a little bit closer to the antenna. Feed the balun with coax and then have it be ladder line from there on out. I had a real problem with that. If you have a long wire antenna or anything like that coming into your house, it'll radiate right into the shack. So coax fed antennas and stuff like that, and some perseverance, and you'll get it. Okay. Yeah, the RARA Club. It's a very interesting club. It seems to be an online organization. It's very interesting. Okay, Tom is saying it took 6 days for him. Has nice tutorials and scripts on how to build a Raspberry Pi with some software to connect to radio. That would be a good thing to look for. Go to YouTube and search on KM4ACK. What kind of keyboard is that, Dave? Sounds like an old-fashioned IBM mechanical PS2 job. In fact, it is. I have this left over from when I used to work for IBM, and when they sent me a laptop to replace the desktop, they told me to just throw it away. So I threw it away in my old trash can and took it out. And I have problems with my hands with a little bit of a tremor, and I find this old-fashioned keyboard with keys that actually have to be pressed to be much easier to type on. So I'm using it. It's actually designed to be the exact same look and feel as an IBM Selectric keyboard, which of course was a real breakthrough ergonomically. But yes, that is what I'm using. Ishmael wants to ground his station and HF radios and also my antennas. Looked at your video on grounding, but didn't understand. I'm getting a Hustler 6-band HF vertical antenna. Well, take a look at that. The ARRL also has a book on grounding. But Ishmael, I think probably one of the best things you can do is to go talk to other hams on the island who can help you out and show you what you need to do. Yeah, the Huntsville Hamfest canceled. I heard about that. That is sad, very sad. Okay, so we talked about the RigPi. This is from Mike Carrington, who is KG0P, who said, I just watched your 288 episode, which is a very recent one. Were you using your computer screen for part of it? My 7300 doesn't have a screen that big. Yes, I certainly was. I use a little SDR Play RSP1A. That's a radio signal processor 1A. And they actually make 3. They make the Duo and they make the DX model, which just has 2 inputs that you can switch between. And then the Duo actually has dual receivers in it. And that's what I was using on my display. Now, my display is a 4K display, so I was able to get a lot of resolution, and I took that video showing what you can do with that little attachment to the ICOM 7300 that will allow you to use the big pan adapter on here. It's a really nice little unit. I use that SDR Play with SDR Uno software. I figure if I buy the software-defined radio from SDR Play. I should use their house brand software if I can, because that will work very, very well. Michael KD8GIJ, thank you very much for the first super chat of the evening. He says, for all you do for the people in the hobby. I try. I really do try to do something that is of use. It's very important to me. Even, I'm retired now, in theory. This is pretty much a full-time job. But I just, it's a visceral thing with me. I've got to be useful. Got to do something useful. I earn my keep. So, yeah, the keyboard is very, very nice. It was the PS2 keyboard. And as it turns out, the computer I built, the motherboard has a connector for a PS2 keyboard. And that's what I've got it plugged into. This is from Jerry Neyenhouse. And he said, I could use your help in understanding the relationship between capacitors and inductors. I'm studying for my tech license and have been viewing your instructional videos on YouTube. Okay, Jerry, you'll learn this as you go on. You'll get more in your general and probably more than you want in your extra exam. The difference between, well, first of all, let's talk about the similarity. Both capacitors and inductors, an inductor is like a coil of wire, like an electromagnet. A capacitor and an inductor can both store energy and then release it later. And they're useful in alternating current and RF because they can store energy for part of the cycle and then release it for the rest of the cycle. Neither an ideal capacitor nor an ideal inductor actually dissipate any energy. Resistors dissipate energy as heat. But in a capacitor, you can put energy in it and then get the energy back. Now, the difference between the two is the capacitor stores electricity in an electric field, and the coil or inductor stores its energy in a magnetic field. Now, as it turns out, when you get up really digging into the math on this, the way they store energy is opposite each other. And a capacitor and an inductor can exchange energy between them because they're completely out of sync with each other. When they exchange energy with each other, we call that resonating. And that fact is very useful in radio because the resonant frequency that it creates turns out to create a sine wave, and that's how we create sine waves in radio, which are radio waves, so that we can send them out. I hope that helps. I hope that gets you started on your technician studies. And thank you to Peter B. Says he enjoys the live streams and videos. He's KC3OLY. Thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate that. We've got 115 people on the system right now. This one is about verticals versus dipoles. And it is from Matt, KD0MYJ. And he says, well, he likes the videos. I'm wanting to move from a dipole to a vertical. A tornado destroyed my perfectly tuned dipole about 5 months ago. I found a multiband vertical on dxengineering.com. There are lots of vertical antennas. And I'll tell you right now, a vertical and a dipole perform about the same. Okay? So you can spend a lot of money on that vertical, and it's not going to perform much better than your own homebrew dipole. But he says that the vertical that he's looking for has radials. He doesn't mind that. He's fine with that. The question is, if I find a vertical that does not require radials, and there are plenty of those, will the reception be as good as a vertical with radials? Well, people can argue about that all day long. I will say that technically, from a technical point of view, no, there's no difference. Verticals with radials tend to be ground mounted so that the bottom of them sits on the ground or very near the ground. You can put a vertical with radials up a little higher, in which case you have to put the radials out there too. But in that case, you don't need as many radials, and they need to be tuned. So you have to have 40-meter radials, 20-meter radials, and so on. An antenna that does not have radials, usually they try to mount it up. They ask you to get it about 10 feet off the ground. Well, just the fact that it's a little higher can help with the antenna reception. So, but you're only talking a dB or two either way. So they're going to give you about the same reception. Now, for example, a popular vertical without radials that's 40 meter through 10 meter is the, I think it's not Cushcraft, I think it's high gain AV, Alpha Victor dash AV640. The AV640. Popular, but it's like $600 and give or take 100. And whereas you can put a radial up, even if you buy a radial to put up, it's not terribly expensive. It's less than $100. You're going to get about the same performance. Now, if you're in a position where you can't put a dipole up, you know, a dipole for 40 meters is 66 feet long. If you just don't have the room, a vertical antenna that does not require radials might be what the doctor ordered, because that can get you on the air with a nice multiband antenna, and you can do good things with that. So that would be my answer to that question. And let's see. And Thomas is back in the hobby, and I'm glad the videos are helpful. Hustler 6 BTV 6-band vertical doesn't require radials. Yeah, there are lots out there. Hello, Sean. How are you? I can't remember if we're on for tomorrow morning or not. Let me know. I've been totally kind of spaced out here. I spent all day Tuesday putting that presentation together. Gave it last night and went well. And then today was messing with this flight simulator thing here. What I've discovered about flight simulators, it's like the first time you turn it on, you're sitting in an airplane facing a runway. No instructions at all. And, man, what a disaster. Anyway, this is from Ken Moss, KM5RVA, who's from Woodland Park, Colorado, which is just to the north of Pikes Peak on what we in Colorado call the Western Front. He says, concerning the reference station, he was considering using the MFJ 2010, which is the reference antenna, as a portable for field day. Should work. Wondering if you think it would be durable enough to endure the occasional abuse. I think so. It's a good solid. Well, I don't need the 1500 watt power capacity of the nearly identical MFJ 2012. I wonder if that model might be more robustly constructed. What is more robustly constructed is the balun. The feed point has a balun in it, and that balun is more robustly constructed, not the wire. The wire is the same wire, and so if you feel you need that extra, go ahead, but you don't need it for 100 watts. I have an OCF dipole and a vertical, and the vertical is a little noisier. Verticals are known for being a little bit noisier, and I haven't found the difference to be terrible. Let's see, takeoff angle is different on verticals versus dipoles. The takeoff angle on a vertical, ground mounted, and the takeoff angle on a dipole mounted a half wavelength high are comparable, but very few people can get dipoles that high. And so, yes, they do have higher takeoff angles if you're down lower. Sean, Monday, thank you. Give me a chance to get my studying done. Sean has been teaching me ground school. He's an outstanding instructor. I keep trying to talk him into doing videos of these so he can have his videos of his ground school instruction. Would a vertical hidden in the trees affect performance to make it not worthwhile? My vertical's in the trees, and it works fine. Going to upgrade to general and extra next month. Well, Mike, very good luck with your studies. Yeah, too bad about Huntsville. To make a dual band ground plane antenna for 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Okay. Can I mount the ham antenna below the CB antenna? Yeah. I mean, they're on different frequencies. They really aren't going to see each other very much. Okay, so we talked about the antenna. This one is from William Shaner. And it says, enjoys the YouTubes. Awful lot on the web lately concerning the frequency stability of the 9700 and the 7300. The 9700, yes, I've heard that. Not the 7300. It works fine. I've not noticed any indication of frequency instability on that. Some of the radios offer higher stability oscillators. My Yaesu FTDX 3000 offers one. In fact, it has an input for a 10 megahertz master oscillator for GPS discipline master oscillator, but I calibrated the thing to WWV, and the radio as it came out of the box was 4 hertz off. So that was within the calibration. I calibrated it so it's 0 hertz off, and it's just like a rock. It just sat there. It just never changed. Such a far cry from the days of the old tube radios, when really they had to be on for about a half an hour before the frequency really stabilized. The worst radio I've ever had for frequency stability was the little MFJ, I think it was the 7040. It's a little QRP rig from 30 years ago, maybe, and it has a VFO in it, and it uses a series of capacitors like you're supposed to do to keep the frequency stable, but they had a weird one in there. So much so that they'd give you a good capacitor for free. I put the good one in, and it's still bad. And still, to this day, it takes an hour or two for the frequency to settle down in the thing. I mean, I used the radio quite a bit when I first got it. It's a little QRP rig. It's 5 watt CW only. The 7040 was it 7040? No, I'm sorry, 9040. The MFJ 9040. I've still got it right here. One of these days I'm going to go after that oscillator and get that fixed. Okay, is this a real-world problem, and if so, for what applications? On the 7300, I have not seen that as a problem. It might be that at some of the older 9700s might have that problem. Frequency stability is more of an issue at VHF, UHF, and most certainly at microwave. But I will tell you that any of the modern equipment is leaps and bounds better than what was available 20 years ago. Okay. He says he has only a... Bill says he has only an HT to his name, but big plans to branch out. We'll take a look at the reference station at dcastler.com/reference, and that will give you specific equipment suggestions. Somebody told me today or last night that instead of calling it a reference station, I had to call it an example station or something like that. It is an example. It's something that if you want, you can just duplicate, and you'll have something that you can be pretty sure will work. Let's see. 14 AVQ, that's what I started with when I first started in ham radio. 14 AVQ. Had it for years. I think Lightning finally got the traps in it. What gauge wire would you recommend for a ground-mounted wire vertical max 100 watts output. Just use plain house wire. Go down to Home Depot and get some 14 gauge wire or 12 gauge or something like that, and you'll be fine. In Flight Sim, go to Flight Planning, set up your parameters. Okay. You're looking at a saturated learning curve. Boy, I will tell you, I couldn't find a trainer with tricycle landing gear. They had tail draggers, and if you're not careful with the tail draggers, you're going down the runway, the tail can come around on you. And every time I tried to take that tail dragger off, that's exactly what happened to me. And so this is weird. You get the flight simulator. It actually comes from Lockheed. It's called Prepare 3D. And when you get it, you don't get airplanes with it. It's like getting an airport without any airplanes. And so the only things they had in there were Lockheed Martin jet fighters and stuff like that. And I'm going, I want to learn to fly Cessna. There's nothing in there. The only small aircraft they had were tail draggers. And tail draggers, you got to be real careful on the takeoff run that it doesn't spin around on you, because that rear wheel loses contact with the ground, and you can have real issues with it. So I've got to figure out, I'm in the process of figuring out where I can get the right airplane models for this Prepare 3D. I got the yoke and a throttle quadrant and rudder pedals for it. So, I mean, beyond that, I can see where, like, a new technician who's been handed a radio would just freak out, because it's so different from any experience you've had before. And I have done a little bit of flying, about 5 or 6 hours. If I get the right airplane, maybe I can. The reason I'm getting it is I can't get aircraft time. So I want to practice procedures. I want to practice takeoffs. I want to practice landings. I want to practice turns and things like that. And so that I can go through the procedures here without actually crashing. Like one of the landings I was trying to make, I totally forgot that you're supposed to flare the landing. And, it was, I think, my 4th landing. And over a period of a couple months. So it's things like that I've got to work out. Anyway, that has nothing to do with ham radio, so sorry for that. Let's see. Flight Sim, go to Flight Sim. Instead of Flight Sim, we'll start. Galaxy 5 drifted. Yes, I guess it would. Those two brigs would drift quite a bit. They had to warm up. The 520S, oh, that's a nice radio. Someday I'm going to have a TS520. The help section in Flight Sim contains all the answers. Yeah, unfortunately, the problem, Bear, is I don't know what the right questions are. It's sort of being overwhelmed. It's like walking into a nuclear power plant going, what do you guys do here? So I'm going to have to get somebody to sit with me and get me started. Once I get started, I'll be okay. Dennis is asking what my thoughts on mag loop antennas are. Mag loop antennas won't allow your pan adapter to work very well because they're very narrow bandwidth. And every time you tune, you're going to have to change the tuning on the mag loop. However, they do work. They're a very compact antenna. My experience with the one I've got from MFJ is that it works about as well as a dipole, and you have to get the tuning just right. So tuning the band looking for CQ is very difficult. Now, I understand that MFJ is coming out with a different tuner for its roof-mounted, or wherever you want them, outside-mounted mag loop antenna that will connect to your radio, and it will automatically follow your radio's frequency. So you won't be able to do the pan adapter because the pan adapter requires a wideband antenna that can get the whole band, but the whole band all at once. But it will allow you to aurally tune the band and find things out there, and that will be one of the great things about their mag loop antenna. It will do that. I have their mag loop. I actually bought it with my own money before there was such a thing as channel funds. Now there are channel funds. I just purchased the My Antenna. Oh, this was so funny. I went to My Antenna, the website, to get one of their end-fed 80 through 10 antennas. And they had a little section, tutorials and stuff in there. They had one on grounding, and I clicked on it and found my own video on grounding. So thought that was interesting. And yes, they had embedded it, which is proper and fine, and anybody can do that with my videos, because what you're actually looking at through their website is my video on YouTube. Okay. Oh, here is Ron having a little bit of fun. He's KJ7, Mike Zulu Oscar. He says, thank you for your Air Force service and the great service for amateur radio. You might skip the light plane and just go for an F4. They can be had cheap, but the fuel bill and repairs are a killer. Looking back, I'd like to be back in the F-111 cockpit. The F-111 was a very controversial airplane. It hugged the ground and it had terrain-following radar. But the problem with the airplane was that it couldn't handle a very sudden rise in terrain, like a cliff. It would start lifting, but it wouldn't lift soon enough, and you just bore a hole on the side of the cliff. And they lost several F-111s in the Southeast Asian theater while figuring that out. That was a current airplane when I was in college. Quite an airplane. Okay, this is from Tom Frerichs. Probably not saying that right. He's going to help me figure out the nanoVNA, so I will try and call him tomorrow. And now I'm looking around trying to see where the adapters are. I got the adapters, so I can use them. nanoVNA is what's called a vector network analyzer, which is the technical term for what an antenna analyzer is, except an antenna analyzer will not do as much as a vector network analyzer. Now, for hams who simply want to know what's my SWR, a vector network analyzer, full-blown one, is overkill. But the little nanoVNAs are less than $100, much less than $100. And if I can figure out a way to say, okay, here's the adapter to get, here's the nanoVNA to get, and here is how to set it up so that it behaves like an SWR or antenna analyzer, then I think I might say, okay, here's what you should go with for the reference station because it's so inexpensive and gives you exactly what you want. But until we get to that point where I can turn it on and it's an antenna analyzer, it's right when you turn it on, it throws all these things at you, things that a new ham is just not interested in and are of interest to engineers. So we'll get that figured out. Okay. And he sent me a copy of the nanoVNA menu structure, and I'll eventually get that up on the website. It's actually in color, and I've only got it printed in black and white. You know, we were printing printed programs for our church services for a while, and doing them in color. And then one day I sat down and actually figured out the cost, and it was like 50 cents a page to do color front and back. And I figured it out that on my black and white printer I could do the same program for 4 cents a page. So our bishop said, you gotta cut the costs there, Dave. This one is from Lee Durrwachter, KA5NHU. Says, I noticed some comments on your Saturday show on the 23rd about your inconsistent audio. You get really loud when you turn your head toward the erasable whiteboard. Yes. What's going on is I've got, and you might tell me how the audio is now, because it's going way up into the red on this thing. And it's from the, this is Chinese mic that was sent to me for review. And then when I switch over here to the overhead, I'm actually using the microphone that's on the little webcam. So people were saying that it was very low here on this. I've tried to even it out a little bit. Let's see. Train simulators make you buy each locomotive. Yes, I know. I'm discovering this, that there's no such thing as a flight simulator. Everybody sells pieces of a flight simulator. Find aircraft from different vendors. So now we are in cycle 25. Have the astronomers said that that's where we are officially? Did you have to buy a yoke for the simulator? Yeah, I've got it right down here. I got the Logitech one. I'll take a MiG-15. I worked on F-111s. Love my nanoVNA. Well, Crittenden, that would mean that you've had a chance to use it quite a bit. Find my rig expert so much easier to use than the nanoVNA. Well, that's the thing. If it's going to be part of the reference station test equipment, it's got to be straightforward. Align the frequency range of my mag loop to 7 megahertz. Tuning is very smooth now. Good deal. Take a look at X-Plane 11, several aero models, including the 172. The 172, which I think is the most common airplane in the United States, even more so than the 737. F-111s originally designed for the Navy. Yeah, the F-111s had those movable wings. I've got to get a Nano. You know where I got mine? I got mine at Walmart. Not at Walmart, on Walmart, walmart.com. Strange. They're trying to compete with Amazon. And so they're allowing a chance anybody to sell on Walmart. One of the advantages of that is they can ship to your local Walmart. And I don't know how well they're going to do with that. We'll see. Amazon right now, or at least they were, like I ordered this. No, I got the flight simulator hardware direct from a place in Arizona. But I ordered something, I think it was the adapters for the nanoVNA. Ordered them over Amazon. They took like a month to arrive. And all of the shipping agencies are just way backed up right now. Let's see. Audio's a little hot, but not bad. Well, I can try turning it down just a little bit. Hope that's not too much. Find flying an airplane easy. Sam radio stuff, though, yeah. Overmodulating somewhat, a bit hot on the desk mic. Well, you know what I can do? I can just cut the volume right here and see. Hello, hello, hello. Let's try it right there and see how it is. It's still going up into the red range, but Rig Expert is easier to use. Yes, it is. Right out of the box, it's an amateur radio instrument. Above communications grade audio quality, it's not like we're in an album recording studio. Got my Nano from R&L for $39. Yeah, and then Tom is saying hook it to a computer. I have a little German unit, the FAVA5, that does hook to the computer and does marvelous things. That was a quasi-kit. They leave you a few things left to solder. You solder it so you can call it a kit. I've got that one I paid for with channel funds. I've got the Rig Expert that they sent me from Canada. I mentioned at the Reno Ham Club, I've got to get one of those. Well, that word got back to their headquarters, but this one came out of Canada. And that is a magnificent analyzer. It's very nice. But the one I find easiest to use, is the old one, the MFJ 259B. They've got the 259C now. It's getting really long in the tooth. It does all kinds of things if you want to set it up right. But that was the one I used with the MFJ 17754 antenna, which was supposed to be a trap dipole for 20 and 40. And when I hooked it up with the Rig Expert, I just looked in the ham band, and it was terrible all the way across the ham band. And then I put the 259B on it and tuned that thing and found that it was resonant well below the ham band. And in fact, it was that way on purpose. You had to tune it because the 40 meter part was so sensitive to size. You have to tune it up into the bands that you want just by slightly shortening the elements. In fact, they had a little thing you could unscrew, pull the wire through, screw it back on. I found a different way to do it that I made a video about. Let's see. Great to see you broadcasting. Picked up my Tech General license a few hours ago in the ULS database. All right. So, Justin, what is your call sign? Still okay audio. Do gutter antennas work if a metal roof is installed? Yes, it can. Be prepared to work really hard to make sure that the different parts of the gutter are really firmly screwed together. And if there is a plastic part in there, you want to bridge across it. Audio is fine. By the way, watch out on getting a nanoVNA. There are, multiple versions, I know. Mine has a white front on it. The AntScope 2 software for Rig Expert is amazing. I haven't tried it yet. I will have to do that. Let's see. What would I recommend? Okay, my software, the rig is, see, they may not have been clear. Okay. Yeah, I got mine from Walmart. Crazy. Okay, we talked to this one about the audio. He said that just keep persevere on my flying. Reference headset. He talked about a product from BH Photo Video. It's a Yamaha headset with a built-in microphone. The key, of course, is finding the adapter that goes to the radio. The radio will supply, I think, 5 or 9 or 12 volts for a condenser mic. But it's looking for about a 600 ohm. I think the input impedance for the mic on the 7300 is 600 ohms, which is the classic line. That's line in, line out, is 600 ohms. And the reason that is 600 ohms is because the classic telephone circuit, on the old telephone poles, was 600 ohms. And if you go into the cables with all those telephone wires running inside, they are wrapped at a rate and spaced with the right insulation to be 600 ohms. And that's what it has always been. And so when radios had a line output, they could connect that line output directly to a telephone line, and off it would go. And vice versa, coming in the telephone line, they could connect it to a transmitter. That would be the line coming in. That's by the way where 600 ohms came from. So, Steve, thank you for the suggestion there. I'll have to look at it. I think I'm probably going to pick one that's specifically for ham radio and that you can get with the right adapter. This is from Jose Tovar. No call sign. I recently bought 2 Radioddity GD 55 Pluses. The GD 55 Plus is a Radioddity DMR radio that will work on Tier 2, but the only way to program it is through the programming software. You cannot program it through the front panel, which is why they dropped that and came out with the GD77. The GD77 is from the get-go a Tier 2 radio. I have one sitting right up here somewhere. That's actually a nice little radio. I've noticed something interesting about Chinese radios. They're getting a lot more expensive. When they're looking at Okay, they're competing against the Japanese radios, which are coming down in price, but the Chinese radios are coming up in price to meet them. I got this radio from Radioddity. This one is GS5B, is a new radio. I think it's out. I don't think they sent me a prototype. It's going to be about $99, and it's not even DMR. It's just an FM handheld. So I remember when I bought my daughter her first handheld radio a long time ago. It was an ICOM IC22A, and it was close to $200. And that was 25 years ago. So quite a while ago. Okay, Jose was saying the issues has on the 20... The older version is fabricated in 2017, the second one fabricated in 2018. The issue I have on the 2017 radio, I have 6 channels used on my work, can cycle through these with no issues. Now on 2018 radio, I recorded the same channels, but I'm not able to cycle the channels, which means that if I go beyond channel 6, I have to turn the knob in the opposite direction and go back to channel 1. How can I fix this? I don't know. Sounds like you're using it for commercial use, which would be outside of amateur radio. And I don't know enough about the GD 55 Plus. I would not recommend that radio, especially would not recommend the GD 55, because GD 55 is only a Tier 1 radio. And although you can use it on a repeater, you're blasting both channels at the same time. So repeater owners would take a very, very dim view of that. So let's not do that. Any recommendations for 2 and 6 meter antennas for an apartment balcony? Well, for 2, you can certainly do a J-pole. For 6 meters, I would recommend a loop, a vertical loop. You can build it with wire around a plastic form or something like that. But a full wavelength loop at 6 meters would be, let's see, 3, 1.5. It'd be about 4 feet square. And that is a very manageable size to handle to make that 6 meter loop. I'd take a look at that. Tune it for whatever part of the band you're going to be using. Most of the weak signal work on 6 meters is right down at the bottom of it. So if you tune it for about 50.5 megahertz, I think you'll be catching a lot of the weak signal work down there. There are very, very few 6 meter repeaters in the country. There are some, but very few. Okay, need to run. Okay, Tom, thank you. Good morning from the Faroe Islands. Reggie, good to talk to you today and see you. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is from Jim McDonald, KI7 Zulu Alpha X-ray. When you look at headsets, Heil sets can be tight on those of us with larger hat sizes. Don't limit your search to small headsets, please. Well, I have a big head, too. Some of those headsets have a steel spring at the top that's actually got a little bit of memory to it. So if you open it up a little bit, it will remember that and be a little less tight on the ears. So, and this next one here is from Mike Carrington, KE0G. That's interesting. He says he ordered the clock kit from QRP Labs, but when you reviewed it, you used a 4-line display instead of the 2-line. I wrote Hans, and he doesn't carry the 4-line. Where did I get mine? I got it from Adafruit. ADA Fruit. It's a company in New York City, downtown, I think, that supplies small electronic items. I think I paid like $25 or something for it. It was not very expensive. There's lots of different displays that size. I got the one that was just 4 lines. It's right here. I got the one that's, I don't know what dropped. I probably want it. The clock is actually pretty small. The clock comes with a 2-line display. And I wanted the 4-line display on here. And I bought the 4-line display. It's a plug-in replacement for the 2-line. And the clock itself will handle a 4-line display. And so you can program the memory in it. You've got to go through this long, drawn-out programming sequence. You've only got 2 buttons on the thing, a button here and a button here, and you've got to press those buttons to program it. And I did that. I programmed it all up and discovered that it was displaying the local date wrong. It was always 1 day less than UTC. Well, you know, most of the day it's actually the same. So I discovered that that's a known bug, and all I needed to do was send $6 to QRP Labs plus $6 shipping, and I would be sent the updated firmware here. Well, foolishly, I thought, well, there's no reason why I can't figure out how to update that firmware myself. I've got the firmware. And I got several suggestions from several people, several different ways to try it. And I ended up bricking the thing. So I ordered another one. And it's another one of those things where all shipping is really slowed down right now. It'll come someday. And when it does, I'll go ahead and make the 2-line clock, and then I'll try the 4-line display on it. And then it will display, it says, KE0OG station clock across the top has the UTC time, then the local time, and then the GPS information down at the bottom. And I wanted more than I could have, and I bricked it. So yeah, Adafruit has quite a bit of those little things. Let's see what else we've got here. Greetings from Indonesia, from Yankee Charlie Oscar. No, Yankee Charlie 0, Hotel Lima X-ray, Hotel Lima Echo. All right. Let's see. I want to check everything that we have here, make sure that we've gotten everything. Ishmael's getting some things from Brad Rich in 6GR, who's Ishmael is in the Republic of Dominica, which is one of the Caribbean islands. It's not the Dominican Republic. That's a different thing. He's in Dominica, which is an island. He's 16 and is working on building up his ham station. And I told him as soon as he gets his HF set up, he's going to be very surprised with because people are going to consider him to be Exotic DX, and will very much be wanting to work him. So, let's see, TS440 gave up the ghost again. By the way, Brad Rich is the one helping me with get going on the flight simulator. He's been very good. I'm looking for a vertical antenna. Any thoughts on the diamond antenna CP6AR multiband? I don't know. I haven't used it. Okay, there are a number of very good antennas out there. Callum said he's going to send me something to test. I'm not sure which one, but we'll see what it turns out to be and go from there. Okay, this is from Denis Malcolm. Whiskey 0 Delta Mike. Bought the Chameleon F-loop on the recommendation for my high-rise apartment with FT891 to try and get on the air. Lots of noise, very faint speaking heard, useless suggestions. Yes, I have their P-loop. I don't have their F-loop. I have their P-loop. Put that thing flat up against an outside wall. If you can put it out on the balcony, put it out on the balcony. Now, you're going to get some noise just because you're in a very noisy environment. But if you can get that thing out there where it can kind of get a bite into the airwaves, I think you'll find that it will work. Now, remember that the magnetic loop antennas are extremely high Q. You have to tune them very carefully. I did a video on a tuning aid for magnetic loop antennas that you might take a look at. And you can get that little aid through DX Engineering. It looks like a little LED, and it glows when the antenna's in tune if you're transmitting at the time. Every time you change frequency, you're going to have to change the tuning on that antenna in order for that to work. So it's not like another kind of antenna where you just tune across the whole band. And you don't have to change the antenna while you're tuning. So there we are. Let's see. Okay. Love to DX from Texas is a bit tough. Well, it can be done. You can get a lot of the Caribbean and the Central American and South American from Texas. And when the band is right, 40 meters early in the morning, Asia is open. Brad's in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and he's telling me he's had some fantastic DX from down there early in the morning. And at night, you pick up some interesting DX on 40 also. During the day on 20, I've heard the 6 meters is even open a little bit right now, probably in the middle of the day. It can be going quite a bit. So we are out of time for Thursday night, but never fear, we will get together again on Saturday. And I will work on recording the narrative to go with those charts. There's 33 some odd charts, and at 3 minutes a chart, that's 90 minutes, and that's awful long for a video. It's long enough for a presentation you got to sit through live, but I'll see if I can't split that up some way or something so I can get that information about noise up there, all the different kinds of noise that you hear. And we'll be able to talk some more. So thank you all so much. Super Chat is open for a last little bit. We've got 115 concurrent viewers right now. Thank you for the 62 likes. I appreciate that. Please also check out the dcasler.com, D-C-A-S-L-E-R, just one S and no T, dcasler.com/support. And that will take you to a page where it shows you all the different ways that you can add to the channel funds, which is what I use to get these new antennas and new video equipment or whatever I need for the channel. And your support has been fantastic, and I really appreciate it. Life is getting back to normal a little bit across the U.S. There are still some hot spots around there. Here in Colorado, it's loosened up quite a bit, and the hospitalizations seem down, so we're doing pretty good. So, until we next meet, 73.